Steven Grayhm is an actor. He has appeared across the board on stage, several television projects, and on film. And he has just directed his first feature film, which he also wrote, and it's debuting at the Boston Film Festival this week. Now, this interview won't air until after the festival is concluded. It runs September 22nd through the 26th in Boston, and it is called the Secret of Sinchanee. And I have watched the movie, and it is quite impactful. First of all, Steven, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. The first thing I like to ask people, and we'll get into the film and various aspects around your career, and obviously the Secret of Sinchanee. But I like to ask people, what got you personally, Steven, to a point where you wanted to make film? You wanted to commit your life to it. You wanted to make it a career. What inspired you to do that? What drew you to the medium of motion pictures?
Well, I think there's probably a two-part answer to that. I think that like most filmmakers, I came up in a generation where we could pick up a camcorder and make our own videos and make our own, which would then kind of evolve into short films, show it to the neighborhood kind of thing. And then you get a reaction from that. And then you kind of study maybe how to cut it. But the second part of that is taking it from a hobby to something that maybe could be a career that you could spend your life potentially doing. So the passion was there from a young age. I think that, the other component to that was doing Sunday school plays at church on stage, playing various characters in the Bible and whatnot. And so having that kind of like acting curiosity to sort of continue to do that. I think as I got into my teens, it was like, well, is that a practical endeavor? And I think that a lot of filmmakers ask themselves that. Do I go to film school? Do I take the money that I would otherwise spend on tuition at film school, and do I just go off and make a film, and try to make something in somebody's backyard, or that sort of thing? So to answer that, where the sort of catalyst was, I had made a decision. I was in my second year of university. I was actually on an academic scholarship, hoping to go pre-med.
Wow.
Because I felt like I couldn't. Maybe it was a very impractical endeavor. I was one of few that went to university out of my family, so I was taking my studies very seriously, but I kind of kept feeling like I was being pulled away, and perhaps wasn't in pursuit of my passion. And it was at around that time in my second year that I decided that I would try to get an agent, and maybe do some local plays, in and around town, in a little farm town I was going to university in. And so I pursued that, and then I got an agent, and then I, with a little bit that I had learned on set, I thought, okay, well, maybe I'll make a short film and see how that goes. And so the first short film I made professionally was a true story based on my mother's side of the family, which were survivors of World War II. They were Polish farmers. And so it all takes place in one night, where they rescue their son. And I shot it on black and white film, Super 16. I had begged, borrowed, and steeled to make it happen. And that kind of set me off. It's actually moving from Canada to Los Angeles. That was where the door opened, because I was nominated for a Hollywood Film Award for it, which was a great honor. And that piqued the interest of like, wow, I could do this. And then sort of, the pursuit sort of took on from there. But I think for a lot of people, I relate, like when I see other filmmakers that I deeply admire, and I see interviews where they talk about when they first got into it. I think for a lot of people, like I came from a very blue collar working class family. It just seems impractical. Like, how do you take the camcorder and those kind of silly videos? We were doing things like Attack of the Killer Vegetables, and with plasticine and stop motion and all that. And then we were doing like dramas and all sorts of things, but taking that and going, okay, well, could I do this, and could I do this for the rest of my life, and support myself doing it.
Boy, no kidding. And I hear that a lot from people in the motion picture industry that I talk with, Steven, is that their life was going one way and they knew it was, but something kept calling them to go that other way, and they finally said, "Heck with it, man! I'm doing it," and it worked out.
Yeah,
You know, they
yeah.
awesome.
It's a terrifying feeling. I mean, and you don't know it's going to work out, and you have no idea, and there's no safety net for most of us. And I'm in a really interesting place right now where I've never put my work out. I mean, I have as an actor put my work out to the world, but I've never put my work out to the world where I had a hand in everything in terms of writing, directing, producing, even acting in it. And it is terrifying. And you kind of get to a point where you're like, it's everything you wished for. And you kind of just hold your breath, and then you just have to let go, and you realize it's no longer your film. It's off, into the universe. And you just hope that people can relate to it, and it reaches an audience, that it touches.
Boy, absolutely. And like I say, I have seen the film, and not just because I'm talking to you. This is really good work. It's scary.
Thank you.
Okay, we're not going to get into specific plot points, but we'll talk generally, obviously, about the movie, which we're going to do now. Again, the name of the film is Secret of Sinchanee, and it deals with Native American history and heritage, and specifically the spiritual nature of the Native American people, and evil spirits as well.
Mhm.
And I've done some research on you. I know you just mentioned, Steven, that your family has a background in,
Yes, on my father's side.
yeah, with the indigenous people.
Mhm.
On your dad's side. What you probably were pretty familiar with, I don't know, the indigenous people and their sensibility going in from your family. But what research did you do? Because even though the tribe is fictitious and the elements of the film are fictitious, there was more to that going on. In other words, you made it more substantial in terms of your personal experience, and I would imagine extensive research.
Yeah, I did. I delved very deep into it, not only into my own heritage, but just in dealing with, indigenous even folklore. And so I had learned so much that, and I actually have a line in the film where one of the detectives actually does acknowledge it, that, for instance, devil worshiping was something that the settlers had sort of demonized the indigenous people into being, because they came to these shores, the settlers came to these shores with Christianity and didn't understand the indigenous people, their rituals, their spirituality. And the easiest thing to do, especially to eradicate or subjugate a group of people when you don't understand them and you fear them, is to put that label on them. And that was a really interesting thing. And I wanted to sort of take that challenge on in tackling that, where the movie takes on a lot of those sort of heavy lifts in terms of how the detectives sort of unravel the story, how they put the pieces together, dealing with the spiritual aspect of it, and then the criminal aspect of it when they're trying to, missing persons, and try to put the pieces together. On my own side, my heritage, we're going through it right now, what we're seeing in Canada, which is originally where I'm from, with the residential schools, where you're seeing so much of the history of indigenous people being wiped away. They found 151 bodies, I believe, under one of the residential schools in British Columbia, and they started to find that it was a history. And so we see these haunting black and white photos of nurses with these young indigenous children, and it takes your breath away, and it's evil, and it's just terrible. But a big part of that, as I had learned in reconnecting with some of my own roots, specifically, I reconnected with my cousin Catherine, who was like the sister I never had, and she's taught me so much about our heritage you know, and it's been so enriching for me because you know, I was sharing this with one of the elders, the indigenous elders at the Massachusetts Center of Native American Awareness, just outside of Boston, and he said the best thing that anyone has ever said to me regarding this is "welcome home," because so many people in the indigenous community, even the elders, they actually don't know their roots because so much of it's been wiped away. And that was a big part of what the objective was with the residential schools. It wasn't just trying to reform to, you know, European or North American custom. It was actually to wipe away that history. And so that's been really interesting for me as well, being a student of learning about my own roots and where they connect to. And so, you know, I took this challenge on to try to, you know, work outside the confines of the horror thriller genre to really try to do something hopefully meaningful, as well as giving you that thrill of all the scares and you know, bringing you into this world of Western Massachusetts, you know, during a really cold winter. I mean, you can feel how cold it is on the screen.
Yeah, yes. Well,
Yeah,
I would say you succeeded in doing that, and there
thank you. I appreciate that.
absolutely. And you know, people need to see the film to determine for themselves. But this, particularly for your directorial debut, it's pretty damn impressive, Stephen. I also
Thank you. Thank you. That means a lot to me.
well, thank you, and you're welcome. The you know, the challenge of being a director. This is your first, I say, your directorial debut as a feature film director. What if you can break it down this way? And I've talked to several first-time directors. Some of your biggest challenges, some of your biggest joys, and maybe one surprise. You're like, whoa, okay, I didn't know this would be a part of the whole deal, but it is. I'm the guy in charge of the film. Let's, you know, go full force forward and tackle it. Just basically your experience as a first time director, because like you say,
Sure.
it was terrifying, and I hear that word a lot for first time director.
Yeah. So I think that, like, what you don't realize is that a lot of filmmaking on set on the day is actually crisis management, because everything that can go wrong typically will go wrong,
Yes.
and it's how you manage that. And again, it's surrounding yourself with the right team. You have to be surrounded by problem solvers. There's no time, especially we were, you know, we had limited means to make this movie. And so you don't have money to throw at every problem. You really have to come together as a group and figure out, how do you execute? Oh, we can't do this. What's our pivot? How do we recalibrate the plan for the day? That was a big eye opener to me. The other thing is, you don't have a movie if you don't finish the day. You have to make your days. And so you really have to think on your toes of, something's taking too long over here. Oh boy, that means that we're only going to get maybe 1 or 2 hours to shoot this over here. And what's over here is a really important plot point that's, you know, this thing could come down like a house of cards. So I think it's time management and crisis management. I think one of the great joys that I had was probably on our second or third day of shooting. We were out in the forest and we were shooting with the kids, and we were doing the backstory to the family history.
Yes.
And I was shooting with actually with my niece, who I cast in it, Alexa Leopold. And it's a scene where they're walking through the forest and she's kind of humming and she's just taking it all in. And we do this beautiful movie shot, and the sun kind of came out right at the right moment, just peeked through the clouds. And I started to tear behind the monitor. I felt weightless. I just couldn't believe just this moment with this child and just how perfect and beautiful and pure it was. And it felt, when we saw the playback, it was very Terrence Malick-esque, in that I couldn't believe that we had captured this. And so you have those kind of moments on set. Those you know, I had it. We hired 10 veterans and 1 Gold Star sister on this project, and most of which did not have any background in filmmaking, or especially with acting. And so knowing, you know, I cast very specifically and knowing exactly what I needed from the character, but then also having these beautiful sort of happy accidents or surprises that kind of come out of, you know, the collaborative process. And that would happen daily, where, you know, you go to bed at night or you go to bed in the mornings, you're shooting through the night and you're just a zombie, and you're just hanging on to those moments of joy of, like, you know, tomorrow you're going to get back out there, and you're going to, you know, hopefully achieve the same. I think some of the kind of like the scarier parts of filmmaking is, you know, when you're the director, when you're the filmmaker, everybody turns to you, and you got, at the end of the day, you take in, you know, hopefully the most informed opinions around you, but the buck stops with you. And that's a big responsibility, and it's not for everybody. And you have to, again, I can't say it enough, make sure that you surround yourself with people that you trust, and people that come to set every day that are problem solvers, that know what they signed up for, and they're there to work. They're there to work as a team. I really prided myself. My co-founder of my production company, Nate Boyer, he's a Green Beret veteran, ex-NFLer.
Yeah.
He was very instrumental in that, where, you know, we created an environment that was very collaborative, that if you had an idea, or you felt very strongly about something, that you got to voice your opinion. And at the end of the day, you don't want to have too many voices in your ear, but allowing people to come to work every day to feel that they could collaborate, because everybody has a vested interest. Nobody shows up to a movie set and says, let's make a bad film. Everybody shows up, and you want to make the best thing that you absolutely can.
Yeah.
And we had some beautiful breakthroughs. There were some great ideas from some of my grips and gaffers, and, you know, and I'm really proud that we were able to do that. And it's something that I want to continue to do on all of our future projects.
And then you mentioned Nate Boyer, Stephen. I want to talk about, first of all, you co-star in the movie, and you also, as we say, directed for the first time, wrote the script, and you co-produced. And with all that, you want the best talent you can get in your film. This is a first-rate cast across the board. These performances are,
Thank you.
They are. I watch a lot of films, and I'm amazed. Budget's probably smaller than yours, Stephen, at the quality of acting in these independent, low-budget films. And one of the co-stars was Nate Boyer. He plays a police detective in The Secret of Sinchanee. And you mentioned that he's a vet. He also, I'm a huge Seahawks fan. I'm in Olympia, Washington, just south of Seattle. So
Nice.
Seahawks roster like 6 seasons ago. He'd never played football before. He did several tours of combat duty in the Middle East, came back to University of Texas, walked on, made the team, and then was on the Seattle Seahawks roster of the NFL.
Yeah.
You talk about, and I'm not short-shrifting any professional in your cast. They're all good. But talk a little bit about Nate Boyer. I know he's also a collaborator with you as well in film, correct?
Yes. So I've known Nate intimately for quite some time, for the good part of a decade, and you know, knowing his story, knowing his transition from you know, from Green Beret to civilian to football player at UT to NFLer to then utilizing the GI Bill to go to Lee Strasberg Acting School in Hollywood, and all those sorts of things. So Nate, very much like me, is complete the mission or die trying, and that's why, you know, he's not afraid to fail. And you absolutely need to have that, especially in filmmaking, where, you know, there's a lot of prep that goes into it, of course, but you have to be willing to fail. So, you know, my relationship with him, we actually connected on one of the very first feature-length screenplays that I wrote. Deals with veterans and the plight of the veteran transitioning into civilian life. And, you know, I spent the good part of a decade getting that off the ground. I had attached a couple A-listers, and we had so many false starts with it in terms of financing, and we were so close. And a few years ago, we kind of hit a wall, and I said, you know, why don't we recalibrate our plan here, make something much smaller, no movie stars, we'll make it for no money. And here's my idea. And so I pitched The Secret of Sinchanee to him. And so the Veterans Project, which is actually called Sheepdog, will be our third film. So we have one more that we're going to do. That's a heist movie. It's sort of Hell or High Water meets The Departed meets No Country for Old Men that we're going to shoot in West Texas in the new year. It's
Yeah.
something that I wrote that I'm going to direct, and Nate has one of the leads in it. So Sheepdog will be our third film, but you know, it was really important. There's no quit in either of us, and so to recalibrate our plan there, and then be able to make a pivot and go, okay, let's, you know, we had these two big A-listers that were attached, and we, you know, like I said, we just kept hitting roadblock after roadblock, and we're like, let's just kind of reformulate our plan, and we'll come back to this, but let's do this right now to prove and show what we can do and what we can do with little means.
Yeah.
And so I can't say it enough. Like I'm so proud of our cast and crew. You know, it does take a village. It's not my film. It's our film. And you know, on such a small budget, we got, you know, worldwide distribution. And it can happen for anybody out there that's listening to this or watching this, that, you know, when you ask me about a cast, especially a cast mostly of non-actors, here's the key. When you're looking at writing or casting these roles, look to people that speak to truth. You know, some of these people were family members, and they were nervous about taking on these roles. You know, the moment you put a camera on somebody and there's a, you know, 100 people standing behind the camera, you feel obligated to do something interesting, but it doesn't typically play to truth. And so I cast very specifically to who I thought, you know, would be not only right for the role, but who would trust me to help elevate them playing that particular character.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I have to thank everybody that did, you know, take that leap of faith with me and trust me, because again, I'm very proud of the performances that we did get. You know, we can talk about Nate really quick here. You know, these are a lot of the veterans that we hired are very A-type personalities, and to trust me and entrust me to allow me to get a more vulnerable performance out of them, which is more fitting to many of the characters. And that was my biggest thing that I hope, you know, really translate and transcends off the screen to the audience. You know, our sort of villain, if you will, is played by Command Sergeant Major Don McAllister, who's retired. And he was my second choice. So Nate was the first one cast. Second was Don McAllister. And, you know, Don is a big muscle, like metalhead type dude, long beard. He's a teddy bear, but 27 years in, and, you know, a grunt, a very proud grunt, and my brother. And, you know, he really trusted me. It's not, as you know, you've seen the film, it's a very three-dimensional performance from him, where his interaction with the young girl, the lead actress in the flashbacks. And again, he had to take a big leap of faith and trust me because it was so outside of his comfort zone. So I think that, like, in each sort of scenario, I knew what I was looking for, tried to create an environment where it was collaborative with that performer, where you know, I was there to catch them if they were to fall, you know.
Yeah, I do. And not everybody wants to, still in this day and age, Steven, not everybody wants to be famous and have their face.
No. Yeah.
Or not.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to get to where people can see the movie after the festival, but
Sure.
I'm a huge supporter. My family is, and most Americans and Canadians of military veterans. And this obviously is something that is more than lip service for you. You just told us you've committed to shining light on military veterans, and you worked 10 years to get a film out about veterans. You mentioned the Veterans Project. I know that you work in collaboration with Nate Boyer on Team House Studios, which is focused on employing military veterans in the film industry. What is your there's obviously an emotional connection to the lives and the experience and the commitment to us to keep us free of military veterans.
Well, You know, it starts from a very young age. I, you know, grew up listening to my grandfather's stories, who was, you know, liberated from Americans. He's actually told me the story of the Americans coming up over the horizon like a movie, being a prisoner of war for 5 years on a labor camp held prisoner by the Nazis with my grandmother. And so there was probably, you know, a deep rooted debt I felt to pay, because I wouldn't be here if that didn't happen. And then I think from there, you know, I had this really interesting experience just over 10 years ago, where I was doing a movie as an actor up in Vancouver, Canada, and I usually drive, do that 24-hour drive to decompress. Well, we had wrapped, and on my way home, I was probably 3 hours north of Los Angeles, and my car broke down, and I was picked up by a tow truck driver, and he was like, "Buddy, saddle up. We got a long ride, you know." And so he drove me into LA, and during that time, I might have said 2 words. I mean, he had just opened up. You know, he was in the service. He had been deployed 4 times. He had multiple, you know, concussions, traumatic brain injury, post-traumatic stress, a myriad of medications he was on, 3 kids, facing bankruptcy. And I mean, I just couldn't believe it.
Mm.
And when I got home to Los Angeles, I was kind of shook from that experience. And I thought, there's got to be more like him, men and women.
Yeah.
And so that was the catalyst. And once I started to peel back the onion and start to see, you know, by 2012, we had the veteran suicide epidemic, the stats on that, which was roughly about 22 a day. I became involved as one of the original architects in the 22 push-up challenge, and had worked with a VSO out of Dallas called 22 Kill, which is now transitioned to One Tribe Foundation.
Okay.
And so there was, you know, I was all in. And, you know, I think that, you know, just to speak to the environment, you know, in Team House Studios, that Nate and I, is our production company that's committed to empowering and training men and women that wear the uniform in front and behind the camera,
Mm.
was that we're creating an environment that is diverse. It doesn't matter your religion, your race, your background. None of that matters. Your politics.
Yeah.
It's a family, and it's unified. And are there hard days? Absolutely. Are there big challenges that we try to tackle as a team? 100%. But it's outside of the confines of the Hollywood system. There's no bullshit.
Good.
You come, you work hard. We hope to give you a great opportunity. We hope to give you a great experience, a lifelong experience. And hopefully for those that have served and, you know, have spent their time in the barracks or on a fob or, you know, on a cop somewhere, that there's some level of nostalgia outside of the danger, obviously, of being in harm's way, but of that brotherhood and that sisterhood. You know, oftentimes, like what we did with Secret of Sinchanee, we had rented Airbnb homes because we were so remote.
Yeah.
And a lot of the guys commented afterwards how great it was to have that sort of fellowship again, where they were getting up and having chow together, and, you know, talking about, you know, what they were doing that day on set, what the objective was and whatnot. And that's a beautiful thing to hear, you know, especially, you know, when I've talked about Command Sergeant Major Don McAllister, you know, he was 27 years in. And I think, you know, he says that that was one of the biggest things that he missed, was that camaraderie. And so I think a big thing that Nate and I have taken on, and I think, you know, as other companies or veteran service organizations, anyone out there that's trying to help a veteran, number one is caring. You have to care. 2 is that most veterans just want to feel vital. They want to feel like they can be utilized, right? That there's a sense of purpose. And so it's like, it's really, for us, it's like focusing on how to lay the groundwork to provide that kind of environment, and then utilizing the strengths and weaknesses of that particular individual as best we can. And I can't say it enough. And hopefully give them a lifelong experience that they can cherish.
Wow, you are to be roundly commended for that, Steve. You don't need me to tell you that. That's beautiful work. It is. these, and I don't want to get maudlin or overly dramatic, but that's beyond, just cursory. Yeah, I'll attach my name to that. You've invested your soul in supporting people that we can't thank enough, and that's outstanding. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, these are my brothers and sisters. Like this family that I'm just so honored. There's no way I can really articulate this journey best other than to just let the proof be in the pudding. I try to let the work be shown in my actions and that of Nate's as well, and what we're trying to create. And I have to tell you, on my own selfish reasons, I get so much out of it. My friendships, when I say family, I genuinely mean that. I mean, there's not a single phone call I wouldn't take at 3 o'clock in the morning, no questions answered.
Yeah.
And I'm very fortunate, to be in this position. And I'm really excited about where we're headed with this. I am really excited about, as we continue to sort of build out our sort of team house family, to be able to continually have these experiences. Now, I'll also say, I've mentioned working outside the confines of Hollywood. A lot of what I do also is fundraising, like in terms of putting the private equity together without, utilizing the conventional Hollywood system.
That's tough.
And Nate and I have been on the front lines together on that. And I think Orson Welles said that 93%, I'm going to get this quote wrong, 93% of filmmaking is raising the money, the other 7% is actually making the film. I can't tell you how much, right? Right.
Yeah.
But you have these experiences that you are a reminder of why you're doing what you're doing. And of course, the objective is to be able to entertain an audience, and you have to reach an audience because you don't get to make the next one if you don't. But it's also of like how you get there. I think that the final product is just as interesting as the journey to get there. And that's something that, we make sure that we don't lose sight of.
Well said, Steven. As everything you've shared with us today is, got to talk about the film after the festival. Again, it's The Secret of Sinchanee. It is Steven Graham's directorial debut. He also co-stars in the film. He wrote it, and he co-produces it. It runs at the Boston Film Festival, which runs September 22nd through the 26th. Where can people get their eyeballs on your film, Steven, after the festival?
Okay, so after the festival in North America, the film will be released in select theaters and on all VOD platforms. That includes Amazon Prime Video, Comcast. It'll be everywhere. Right. So October 8th, it's a Friday next month, North America. In the UK, it'll be available on October 29th. We're actually screening at the Raindance Film Festival in the UK. So it'll be released the day after, and it'll be on similar platforms. We also have a distribution deal for all non-English speaking worldwide territories. So it'll eventually be available around the world.
Wow.
But for the North American audience that's listening now, October 8th. If you have Apple TV, if you have Comcast, any of your providers, you can watch it there. In select theaters, I think in some of the major cities, it'll be out as well. But everybody's support on this film, I took a big swing. I feel like, and I hope that the film delivers for everybody. Again, it's outside the confines of the genre. And that was part of that big swing, to try to do something that might be a little bit more meaningful, but satisfying at the same time.
Yeah, every film, pretty much every film, is made and it needs to be commercially viable. We get that, but there is. I'm just going to say this, and people can, I offer my feelings on a film. People can decide what they'd like to do. there is true heart and soul in this film, and there are things that you did in this film, Steven, that you didn't have to do, but clearly was important for you for it to be a component of your art. And that's, we talked about the veterans and their experience. Brave is too strong a word, and I don't mean that in a diminishing sense, but that's extraordinary and special. I watch a lot of films, and there's a lot of easy way out type things, and that's fine. It's entertainment, and people make what they make and watch what they watch and enjoy it. But there's more going on in the Secret of Sinchanee than just a commercial vehicle, and I mean that as a compliment.
Wow, that means a lot to me. Thank you.